Hello and welcome to the latest podcast. I'm JP John Paz right here on the two-man power trip of wrestling. Of course, joining us is the former WCW head writer, former WWF head writer, the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Vince Russo. Vince, welcome back.
What is going on, John? How you doing, my friend?
I am doing good. Of course, we were talking Hogan. We were talking the Hogan retrospective. We're really, touching on all topics Hogan. Right now, we kind of left off and wanted to ask you, why did Vince let Hogan go to WCW? What did he tell you about that?
Yeah, no, bro. I gotta remember specifically. I was, the magazine editor of the time, and I remember having the conversation with Vince. And at that point, Vince wanted to position, and these are Vince's exact words. He wanted to position Hogan as the Babe Ruth of the WWE. In other words, like special attraction matches, whenever Hulk worked, it would be a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Um, but pick and choose, when he has these events. But Hogan did not see it that way. And Hogan at that time felt he still had a lot left in the tank. And he still, more or less wanted to be an active wrestler on the card. And Vince just wasn't looking at him at that point in time. And it was because of that disagreement that Hulk pretty much moved on to WCW.
Man, it crazy to think like Vince thinking like, it's all right, Hogan leaves, and eventually Savage leaves. So he's probably like, that ass has got to be puckering up a little. Like, oh, did I make a mistake here? You know what I mean? Like, you don't kind of think about it because he thinks that 38, 39, 40, these guys are getting older. He's like kind of thinking they're done or they're past their prime. He's kind of thinking he's going to do this new generation and build all these young stars, but those two guys, especially Hogan, had so much left in the tank that would end up really, really butting this, like literally almost putting him out of business.
Yeah, but we talked about this a little earlier in the first episode. Listen, John, Vince always, 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 always believed no one guy was bigger than the WWE. Not Hogan, not Savage, not Austin. He always, always believed that, and he always had that mentality because you're talking about a guy that let Hogan go. You're talking about a guy that let Savage go. You're talking about a guy that let Hall and Nash go.
Yeah.
That was Vince's mentality, was no star is bigger than the brand. He always thought that way, man.
But it's interesting though with Hogan because he was kind of bigger than the WWF in certain, because Vince lost toy deals because they found out Hogan wasn't there anymore. Like, wait a second, Hulk, we're done with this toy deal.
And bro, you know what's funny? You still got the Hulk Hogan effect today because it goes back to Triple H telling Ryback there will never ever be a John Cena. What does that mean? What that means is there will never be anybody bigger than the business. Yep. And by Triple H and the WWE taking on that type of philosophy, and they've held to it. And bro, if you have that type of philosophy, that probably means you're never going to see another Hulk Hogan, because when you reach a certain point, they're going to put their thumb on you because they don't want you to become bigger than the company. So when you look at where wrestling is today, bro, that he has a clear effect of the direction that the WWE has gone in 2025.
It is true though, like when you think about Hulk, of like he's kind of like what you want, like the Cena, the Austin, the Rock, the Roman Reigns, like that top guy. But you're right, like maybe they don't want to be Hogan because the guy becomes so big, he gets so much power, and he's so famous that if you don't have him around, people are complaining, and then you have to pay him more money. Like, so yeah, there's definitely that like Hogan effect, if you will, of that for sure.
Yeah, then he gets to call his own shots.
Yeah.
Hollywood's calling and knocking on the door and offering more money than he's making wrestling. They don't want to deal with that anymore.
So it is funny when you think about it too. When he gets like leaves WWF, right, the end of the era there, the Hogan era is over. They're going with the new generation. They're going with Brett. They're going with like new stars. So he goes to WCW eventually after doing some acting and stuff. People can love it or hate some of his acting. I love it. I love some of those movies. But when you look at it, they treated him when they debuted WCW at MGM and like that. They treated him almost like we have a new ride here. It's a new attraction. Like it was a parade for the Hulkster.
I remember that. I remember the parade vividly. I remember watching that on WCW. Yep.
I was talking to obviously years ago, but I was talking to Kevin Sullivan about it. He hated it because it was like we're treating this guy like he's bigger than the company already. Like even though he was Hogan's boy, he was like, "This is not a good sign." Like what we're like, they're opening up like a park. We got the brand new Hollywood studios. The MGM Grand. Or it's like treating him almost like he's above it.
Yeah. God, bro, it's funny because you fast forward to God, bro, when did him and Bischoff come in TNA? 2009?
Yeah. Yep.
Bro, at that point in his career, Spike TV was handling it the same exact way at that point in Hulk's career in 2009.
Funny, 15 years later, remember they had the big press conference at Madison Square Garden with Hulk, and they made a huge deal about him coming in. And everyone's like, "Wait, is he going to be wrestling? He's kind of old at this point. Like, what's going on here with the Hulkster?" But yeah, you're right. It's Hulk. I guess you have to do all the pomp and circumstances and stuff when he's coming in.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable story, bro. Who's going to play him in the biopic?
I don't know. I remember it was supposed to be Chris Hemsworth, and then that fell through. So yeah, I wonder. Supposedly Ben Affleck is just like interested. I don't know about playing Hulk, but he's interested in the story. He's a huge fan. I don't know if you saw the accountant, the press conference thing with him and that guy John Berthnell, the guy who plays the Punisher. They for some reason got off on a tangent, and he's going Junkyard Dog, and he goes Iron Sheik. They're going back and forth with old wrestling names.
That's pretty great. That's great.
And he goes, Nate's your boy Ric Flair. He's like, oh, I love Ric Flair. Oh my, so Affleck is a big fan. So apparently he wants to do something, I guess, with Hogan, like a story or a movie on him.
Yeah, interesting.
So obviously Hulk he's a huge name. The wrestling isn't great at this point. WCW is like here, WWF's here. It's not, it's not what it's going to be when the NWO, but you slowly but surely see with like Nitro and stuff like, wow, WCW is kind of just as popular as WWF. And it's not because people really know what WCW is. I feel like it's just because everyone saw Hulk, went there and like, oh, this must be the big leagues now. Because even me, who's a huge fan, even me thinking like, I guess WCW is the big leagues now. Like, because you got Hogan, right? I mean, is that like a mindset, do you think?
Well, bro, what happens too is it's funny, bro, because it has happened again. The only problem is AEW hasn't taken advantage of it. Bro, when you look at Nitro and the start of Nitro and, 83 weeks and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Bro, a lot of the reason that happened was because at that time, the WWE was so bad. So that really created the open. Bro, I had that same open during the Attitude Era when they beat the NWO into the ground. They didn't know what to do with it anymore, bro. It got to the point of meaning nothing, and that was our opening. Yeah. And I feel in today's wrestling, man, the WWE product, I don't care what anybody says, man, it's not good. I mean, it's all about the pop. They just do things for the pop now. And the door is open for AEW. The problem is that they haven't done anything compelling enough or interesting enough to put the focus on them. But that's what always creates the turn of the tide, John, that opening when all of a sudden the number one show is not as strong as it used to be.
When you're looking at it with Nitro too, because obviously Hogan is on the first couple of Nitros. It's crazy. I was just watching it with a buddy of mine for his podcast, Monday Night Warfare, throw it out there for you, my buddy Ray. And we were talking about like, wow, Hogan's wrestling on a random Monday night at the Mall of America against Big Bob Rogers. And then he wrestles Luger. Nitro is literally, you could say, oh, great job by Bishop, but it's literally built on the back of Hogan wrestling in the main events too. It's red and yellow Hulk Hogan. It wasn't as over, obviously, as Hollywood will be, but right. I mean, they're still putting the back of Nitro on Hogan.
John, how old is he at this point?
1995. So what was that, 30 years ago? So he's in his early 40s.
Okay. So he's still got a little gas left in the tank.
Oh yeah, and some of the matches, like you kind of surprised. You see like a jolt at Hogan, like, oh shit, he's him and Luger, like, oh, they're really going at it. So he still had it, obviously, at this point. He just wasn't the Hulk of the 80s and maybe
But
maybe
man,
early
that
90s.
goes to show you, like you said earlier, like Vince's cutoff point is like 40, 42, and that's it. And look how long guys are going today. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. Here's the thing too, is like, okay, everyone always complained like Hogan, he's not putting anybody over, blah, blah, blah. But in this period of time, okay, so he lost to Flair. Not never really was pinned, but he'll lose by count out to Flair. Like they'll build up him and Flair, which was a great feud. And by the way, WCW did Hogan Flair better than WWF did because WCW Bash at the Beach did over 200,000 buys. Like they started kicking ass, taking names with that feud. Halloween Havoc does, I think, 230,000 buys. So I mean, like pay-per-view wise, they were way better than they used to be. Like WCW used to hover around 100. So I mean, you're looking at 100,000 plus jump that
Yeah.
Hogan showed up. So it's not like Hogan is lollygagging or doing anything bad. Him and Flair were drawing tremendously. Obviously, he brings in his buddy the Butcher, Brutus Beefcake, and that doesn't draw as well. So then they have to go with Vader, and that draws better, and they're starting to pick up a little bit of steam. But really, the Giant is somebody that he literally picked out of nowhere, got him over, and made him a star within an instant. And he beat Hogan. I know, obviously, with crazy circumstances, but Giant's first pay per view, Halloween Havoc, he beats Hogan technically and wins the title. So
Yeah.
he gets this guy over that they're pretending is Andre's son immediately. So everything is revolving around Hulk, but he's actually delivering, maybe to a small extent, but he's delivering.
And John, I do want to say this because I've said this about TNA. And I want to make this perfectly clear. Bro, Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan coming to TNA was the beginning of the end. And I'll tell you why. This is what a lot of people don't understand. It had nothing to do with their creative. It had nothing to do with their ideas. I told you, bro, Dixie wanted Hulk. Hulk included Eric in on the deal. So Dixie wound up shelling out a lot of money that the company did not have. So what happened was, bro, she started, it was, Peter stealing from Paul, where now we're taking money out of other areas in the company to pay for these two guys. So that means you're taking money out of advertising, public relations, promoting house shows, marketing. We're taking all money away from the other important aspects of the company to pay these two guys. At the end of the day, they did not have the money to pay them, and everything else suffered. But I do want to say this. I've always made this clear, and I think the same thing happened with WCW. That's why I'm bringing this up. Bro, when Hulk came over, he had every single intention of using the Hulk Hogan brand and using himself to bring TNA up to prominence. He really believed that. He really believed he was going to do that. And I think it was the same exact thing at WCW. So my point is, bro, no matter how much money he was getting paid, this guy wasn't collecting a paycheck. He really wanted to use the Hulk Hogan brand to the absolute best of its ability to get that promotion over. Like I said, bro, I saw that at TNA in 2009. And bro, a lot of people at that point in their career, John, would just be collecting a paycheck. I mean, they've done all they could do. What else are they going to do? But he really honestly believed that his brand would get TNA in the game against WWE.
And just going back to WCW, because obviously we were kind of alluding to this and talking about this before. So, okay, the red and yellow Hogan, it's working to extent because they're neck and neck with, like, as soon as Nitro debuts, it's beating Raw. So it's not like WWF is like this ass kicker, blah, blah, blah. Hogan's infusion immediately. You can even say Hogan versus WWF, not even WCW, just say Hogan versus WWF. Immediately, they're even. They're even Steven. So it's crazy to think that, but it's true. Then it's not really working. The red and yellow, he's doing movies in Hollywood. He's coming back sporadically. He even one time a Nitro is wearing all black after they shaved his mustache, kind of teasing a heel turn. Then he goes back to red and yellow, but it's not really working per se, what they want. So what do we do? We're going to have Hall and Nash debut, which is unbelievable that just kind of falls into their head. Like, how do you release Hall and Nash at the same time, like within 2 weeks of each other? Two of the best guys in their prime, in the business.
I remember having dinner with Bruce Pritchard when Vince was going through those contract discussions with Hall and Nash. I remember it vividly because Bruce was sitting me down to tell me we were going to lose those guys. And bro, again, the reason behind it was in Vince's mind, nobody was bigger than the brand. And these guys were demanding a lot more money than Vince was willing to pay. And Vince let them go. But I mean, I remember that conversation prior to them leaving to go to WCW.
Man, it's just like crazy to think, especially looking back, like what an idiot. Oh my God. Like, how could you let those two guys go? So then they create the NWO, obviously pretending it's WWF, you want a war, you got it. You know who I am. You don't know why I'm here. You don't know who the third man is at Bash of the Beach. But even the pay-per-view before that Great American Bash, when they beat up Bischoff and they powerbomb through the table, right then and there, you're like, this is freaking awesome. Like, I don't know who the surprise guy is, but this is freaking like you were just enthralled with WWE at this point. You were just loving Hall and Nash. They kicked Bischoff's ass, who's the boss. You don't know who the third guy is. They set up for Bash of the Beach with Sting, Luger, and Savage, who are huge stars in their own right. Who's going to be the third guy? Hogan comes out, turns heel, literally changes the business forever. You get another boom period. You got newspapers covering, you got television stations, you got everybody covering the fact that Hulk Hogan is now a bad guy, and everybody was going nuts over it. WWF scared at this point because this was like game, set, match.
I got to tell you something, man. I'll never forget this because at this point, Pat Patterson left. Bruce and Cornette are writing the television, and I'm like the third wheel. Okay. Like I'm just like junior writer. And I was spending a lot of time with Bruce at that time. Bruce and I were pretty close at that time. And bro, I went over his house to watch that pay-per-view. And John, yeah, I remember watching it. You can't edit this, can you, John?
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Hello? Hey, I'm in. Sorry, John. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
So John, I'm at Bruce's house and I'm watching this. And John, I swear to God, I remember I'm thinking we are dead. It is over. Like I knew like we're done. We are done. And like I don't think Bruce really understood. I really don't. And I had to no sell it, because I'm junior writer at that time. So I couldn't say how I really felt, but I'll never forget being at Bruce's house and the Hogan gimmick and me knowing like, bro, we're done. Like this is absolutely over. It's done.
Crazy. It literally changes the business, and you go into another boom period. I mean, it's unbelievable what the NWO, and because the promo at the end turns on Savage, turns on WCW, the new world order of wrestling, brother. It just unbelievable. It literally just reshaped the business. It completely changed. And then you get the Monday Night Wars ramped up beyond belief. And then literally off the backs of Hogan and that, you get the Attitude Era. Because without that, you don't have an Attitude Era. You don't have a Stone Cold. You don't have a Vince as a heel, kind of piggybacking off of Bischoff, who's playing the heel character first.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And John, again, though, you gotta be honest because it's kind of twofold. Yes, that was great television and the NWO was great and it was the new era of professional wrestling and it was more reality based. It was all those things. But bro, on the other side of the coin, if we're going to be honest, WWE absolutely sucked at that time. You're talking about TL Hopper, the Goon, Freddie Joe Floyd, who Mantar, you're talking about all that. So like it was so prime to become the number one promotion based on what they were doing, what the WWE was not doing. And it was really no surprise.
Man, they were awesome. Crazy. Like the NWO, right? He becomes champion. They spray paint the belt. They're spray painting people. They're beating people up. They're getting the cops called on them for real. because they're beating up people outside of outside of Disney. It just was one of those things where it's like it felt real, it felt different. Hall and Nash are obviously using their real names. Hogan's a heel, he's acting completely different. By the way, a little newsflash to Cena: you had the blueprint of how to turn heel from Hogan, you idiot! Like Jesus, like you change your look, you change the way you wrestle, you change the way you act, you change the way you cut promos. You know what I mean? Like he became a completely different guy. And I was watching an old promo of him in Hollywood, maybe the best promo I've ever seen him cut, making fun of Flair, making fun of all these guys. It's just shooting. Just like it was completely different. It was awesome. He was just and even like he fused with Savage again. Oh, he feuded with Savage, but it's flipped. Now he's the
Right.
heel. He fused with Piper, which was unbelievable. When Piper comes in, they start shooting on each other back and forth. So good. Like might be one of my favorite promo ever. After Havoc, he beat Savage. He which is great because the crowd was so into it, and he completely is a heel and they cheats to win, and like there's no Hulk ups or anything. He completely changes everything. Piper comes out, they start shooting on each other. It just hey Piper, squat when you go into that bathroom, and he's going, you're nothing without me. They were booing me more than they were cheering you, and he's like, you were playing Tootsie's Bar and Grill when I was wrestling. Just going back with it was so good.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. Really great stuff. What a great time. That was really, really a great time. And that's why, bro, like that kind of started the whole thing because I wanted to work there. What we were doing at WCWE was so freaking lame. And I'm like, I got to be a part of this. And that's where like, Kevin and Jeff put the word in Bischoff's ear, and Bischoff wound up calling me. And that was honestly, bro, that was really the start of the Attitude Era, because Bischoff winded up calling me and I was like, bro, I want to come work for you guys. And John, I felt so guilty about having that conversation with Eric that I made I set up a meeting with Linda McMahon like the next day, because I wanted to ask Linda. I had one question for Linda. If you think all I'm capable of is writing the magazine, I need you to tell me that. Because if she would have said yes, I would have went full bore and tried to get hired by WCW. So I went in there to ask her that question, and that's where Vince McMahon walked in. And that's where I asked the question. Vince got hot at me. And I said, bro, I'm trying to help you. He got hot at me. He cut a promo on me. And I think this was a Friday, John, to be honest with you. I think it was a Friday. That Monday was perhaps the worst Raw in history, where it was it was like one team was in the US, the other team was in the UK. It was that Raw. And the next morning is when I got called into Vince's office, and he, knighted me, whatever that, but it was all because of I wanted to go to WCW. This should be wrestling in 1995, 1996. This is where it was at. That's how it all started, man.
So we'll fast forward actually to you actually joining WCW, but before that, obviously WCW, NWO, they're kicking ass. Sting and Hogan have that year-long feud. Yes, Starrcade '97 was not how it should have ended, but 700,000 pay-per-view buys. I mean, WCW just kicking ass, just killing it. Sting and Hogan are just like the two big draws, and obviously Hogan is the draw. But then obviously NWO, they do the Wolfpack, do the Black and White, NWO Hollywood. It starts petering out. They killed off the Golden Goose. They killed off the NWO. The Attitude Era, Austin, The Rock, Mike Tyson, Undertaker, Foley, Kane. I mean, you guys just start and Vince himself. Yep. And then you're writing it. You guys are kicking ass and taking names. Eventually, obviously, and we talked about this before, but you actually end up leaving WWF because Vince being Vince, you end up leaving, and then you go to WCW. So you finally do get to WCW, obviously not when you initially want to, but years later you get there. What was like the initial thoughts? Like, oh, I'm going to be possibly going to be working with the Hulkster.
Oh yeah, bro. That was my number one thing. My number one thing, bro, was I was going to be working with the two biggest icons in wrestling that I had never worked with before. I was going to be working with Hogan and Flair. I mean, that was really That was really first and foremost on my mind. And bro, I'll never forget, like, the first time I ever laid eyes on Hogan, bro, this guy did not trust me as far as he could throw me. He already had made up in his mind that I was there to get all the younger talent over and, push the younger talent and send him out to pasture. He already had that already had that made up in his mind. He had said on interviews that, people told him that was my plan, which it never was. I had no intention whatsoever of getting rid of Hogan and Flair. At that point, they just needed to be repositioned. That's all I was looking to do. But bro, the guy did not trust me from day one. And bro, let's also be honest, John. It didn't help that he was still buddies with Bischoff. I had more or less replaced Bischoff, so
Yep.
I'm sure Bischoff was feeding him a lot of this stuff. But bro, I'll be honest, like I don't feel like I ever had a chance with Hulk Hogan.
It seems like other people that he knew and trusted maybe aren't giving him always the best advice, which we were talking about even later on in life too. Unfortunately, they're not giving him good advice, and he's just a man here. He's not a perfect human being here. He's going to take advice and listen to other people. So maybe he's listening to the wrong people. And obviously, if Bischoff is saying something like, "Hey, I don't know about this guy," or even let's say Sullivan's like, "Brother, I don't know if we could trust this guy, brother."
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
Like,
absolutely, 1000%. Yep.
So it doesn't get off on the right foot with the Hulkster. And then the legends, obviously, we've talked about this a million times, we've talked about all the WCW pay-per-views, but the legends kind of leave. And then, you're obviously, whatever you want to do with them booking wise, but they're obviously probably talking to each other too.
Yeah,
Like him and Flair probably,
absolutely.
I don't know about this. I don't trust this guy. So it's not a
Absolutely.
good start for you there.
Well, but John, that's the thing. You got to understand something, bro. Like when you had been around it for as long as I had, I knew this was happening. I knew this was going on, but I was hired by WCW, and I honestly felt that was the best thing to do at the time. We had to get that undercard. We had to elevate that undercard because guys like Hogan and guys like Savage and all the guys that were on top were getting older. So we did have to develop the Benoits and the Malenkos and the Guerreras, the Jerichos. We had to elevate that. Well, not Jericho. I had already brought Jericho into WWE, but I knew what was going on, but I also knew that was the right thing to do for business. So whatever was going to happen was going to happen.
It's one of those things where there's already animosity even before you really get going.
Absolutely.
And then when that happens, it just adds to it. Like
Absolutely.
nothing's going to help.
Nope. 1000%.
So we've talked about this before, but maybe not in great detail, but Hogan loses in 3 seconds to Sting at Havoc 99. Was there a reason why, like, it wasn't longer? It was like, because I know he's talked about before, there wasn't anything for him. He didn't know.
And that's bullshit. And I even told Bubba that because Bubba recently played the clip. Hulk said that, he was supposed to job to Sting or something like that.
Yeah.
And he asked Bill Bush where we were going with that. And Bill Bush said, they had nothing for him creative. That entire story is bullshit. That entire story was Hulk's paranoia. Bill Bush, I did not have creative meetings with Bill Bush. Bill Bush did not know where I was going creatively. He was never involved in creative. So whether or not Bill Bush told them, "Oh, they don't have anything for you," bro, that may have come from the top because maybe they couldn't afford to pay him anymore. That did not come from me. I had a plan, and I've told you the plan about the Avengers. And one by one, if you look at my TV, you see it. He jobbed out to Sting. We dumped Flair. In the desert. Roddy Piper destroyed the set. We were trying to get rid of Piper. If Perfect loses one more match, Kurt Hennig's out of WCW. Freaking Savage cut a promo on me. That's where it was going. Anybody that goes back and looks at WCW, you can see every one of those legends was getting forced out. That was the story. That's where it was going. So John, I promise you, in all the years that I wrote for every company, never once did I ever say, I don't have anything for you, or I don't know where I'm going for you. If I ever felt that a talent was never going to get over, I would tell a Bill Bush, or I would tell a Dixie Carter. There's no use in keeping somebody on the roster if you don't think they're going to get over. So if you're on my roster, bro, if I ever say to you, I don't have anything for you, I should be fired. As the head of creative, it is my job to have something for you. And I clearly had something for Hulk. And even when Bubba just played that again, I contacted Bubba and I'm like, brother, please. That is so freaking untrue. There was a plan in place for Hulk at the time.
So obviously with Hulk, you end up leaving. You're gone as writer. Then he leaves, but then he comes back when Sullivan's writing. Then you come back again, and we've talked about this before, but the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club starts. So, he's doing the FUNB. I mean, we're seeing a completely different Hulk. And Bischoff just literally, I think yesterday was talking about, he really didn't want to feud with Billy Kidman. Well, we kind of figured that, but because he said he couldn't draw a flea market, he kind of leaned into it almost too much.
Yeah.
He made it happen by accident.
Right. Absolutely. No, that wasn't the plan. We made that the plan based on that interview.
It was, I don't know, one of those things where, the internet obviously is becoming more prevalent, but he's saying that and it's getting out there. So people are like, oh, him and Kidman have an issue. So it's kind of his fault.
Well, it is his fault, bro, because what Kidman's not going to react to that? Like, seriously, if I'm Kidman and I'm at home reading that, I'm not going to react to that. Bro, I've always said this. You've got to protect every single person on the roster. I don't care who it is. If they're on your roster, you got to protect them. And when he's saying things like that publicly about Billy Kidman, you've got to protect Billy Kidman. So now it becomes, what would Kidman do if Hogan said that? What would he do? I mean, and that's how the story writes itself.
So we've talked about this. We have it in the archives. Anybody wants to talk about Bash of the Beach 2000? You've talked about it ad nauseum. But my interesting thing here with this is, let's just say that never happens, right? Bash of the Beach never happens. The Jarrett thing, this is why this is in, and obviously this is a part of the work too. Hogan's working it. You're a part of the work, and it's going to be Hogan returns. So if Hogan does come back as champion, is he going to feud with Booker T? Is that the plan? Because Booker T ends up winning the title at the end of the night. Is it Hogan Booker going forward, like when Hogan returns?
I like I said, John, I never was able to get to that point because Brad Siegel told me, do not call Hulk because we can't afford to put him on the show. That was the end of it. There was no even thought, because that was supposed to be the discussion I was supposed to have with Hulk. Okay, bro, Booker's a champion now. I sent you home with your belt. Let's talk about where we go from here. That was my next discussion with Hulk. But that's when Brad Siegel gave me those orders, and I don't believe Hulk appeared on TV after that because, like I said, bro, they couldn't afford to pay him.
Do you think, though, do you even remember, would it have been Hogan if he was allowed to return versus Booker? Because they're both technically were the champs.
Oh, bro, I had every intention of following up with that story. Every when I told Hogan I'm going to call you and I wanted to see what his thoughts were, I 1000% meant that. We were definitely going to follow up with that and go someplace without a shadow of a doubt, bro. That was the plan.
Now, I never heard this one before, but our buddy Larry said this to me: Hogan versus Flair, Starrcade 2000. it was like a possible rumor or something that you might have wanted to do, like a final Legends match, like their final encounter type? Was that ever, or
That
no? Would
wasn't
it be
me.
Hogan against a young guy?
That wasn't me, bro. Maybe it was somebody else, but that was not me.
All right, so there's never a thought
No,
for like the Hogan Flair one last hurrah
no,
kind of
no,
thing.
no.
Even though years later they would have one last hurrah a few times. WWE, they would have it, in the 2000s, and then that Hulkamania tour in Australia, and then TNA, him and Flair. So it's
Yeah,
almost like him and Flair were feuding forever in every
yeah,
organization they've ever been in,
yeah, yeah.
destined to feud. Maybe feuded too much in WCW because I feel like people were kind of getting tired of
That
Hogan and
was the
Flair.
thing. That
Like one
was
pay per view
John.
drove 400,000 buys, and then the next one
John.
didn't draw so well.
That was the decision to do the Avengers angle. The week before I came to WCW, Hogan and Flair were the main event, and it looked freaking horrible. And I remember sitting there saying, these are two legends that need to be protected. They need to be put in the proper spot at this point in their careers. And that's when I started putting into play that they were all getting taken out. It was based on the last match I saw between them.
Interesting. And obviously, at that point too, I think that them versus somebody else younger that make them look good and do special attractions. I think that was probably the way to go, not having them feud again with each other, because it almost felt like, wow, WWF is like young, hip, and cool, and they're
Yeah,
still doing Legends matches over here. You
yeah,
know what I mean? That kind of thing.
exactly. Yep.
Even though they still, honestly, some of those matches were pretty good. Like they could still deliver, and Flair was still really good at that point. So it was interesting, but it's not really what the fans wanted to see anymore. It's almost like they were past that.
Yes. Yeah,
See,
exactly. That's how
have
I
these guys
felt
few
anyway.
younger guys.
Yeah, that's
Feud
how I
again.
felt anyway. Yes.
So, like, really think about it. He never returned to WCW. You end up leaving WCW. WCW ends and it's over. And you kind of think, like, okay, that might be the end of Hogan and wrestling because him and Vince don't really get along. So Hogan does XWF for Jimmy Hart, for his buddy. And Lawler's in XWF and Piper's in XWF. They're trying to get Sable in XWF. Vince sniffs this out, signs Piper, signs Lawler, signs Sable, of course, brings back Hulk. Hulk then ends up not only in a good spot, in an amazing spot. He brings back the NWO. They come back together, short lived, not what they were promised, not the run we expected. But it's great for Hulk because Austin inexplicably turns down the Hulk match. So
We
Rock
got
gets it.
bro, we
And
got
Rock's
we
like, hell yes.
yeah, we got to go back though cuz this was
Yeah.
very interesting. So, bro,
Yeah.
Vince hires me back in 2002.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And bro, I'll never forget after we agreed on money and everything else, I'm sitting there with Vince and I'll never forget. I'm like, "Okay, Vince, let's address the elephant in the room." Hulk was working for the company, John.
Yeah.
And I said, "How are we going to handle this?" The last I saw Hulk was Bash at the Beach. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? So I'm
Yes.
like, "How are we going to handle this?" And bro, his exact words to me was, "I don't give a shit about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan has not drawn me a dime."
Whoa.
That was 2002, whatever month that was, where I almost went back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah,
Vince.
yeah.
But Hogan Rock, though, that was huge,
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Obviously,
absolutely,
drew
absolutely. Yeah,
huge.
John, I swear, and you know, I've never seen that match, but I know how huge it is. I mean, I do
Yeah.
understand how huge the match was. Yeah,
To be honest, if people want to say it's the best match ever, I wouldn't disagree. If they want to say it's the best match of WrestleMania, I wouldn't disagree. Just because the crowd is nuts, the reaction, you can see the way Hogan and him are working together. They think Rock's babyface, they have to flip it. So like it's really really well done. Hogan hulks up, he does the kick out, and then the Rock kicks out of the leg drop. And Jim Ross is awesome on the call. He's like, Andre the Giant lost to that move, and the Rock kicked out. Like really really good.
great stuff. Yeah, yeah,
And obviously 70,000 people are there. I mean, it's like insane. It's just
yeah.
crazy.
I gotta watch that match, bro. I've never watched that match.
So it's like, man, maybe Hall and Nash, the return wasn't that great, but it worked out well for Hogan because after that, Vince sees like, okay, there's money to be made here. Let's turn them yellow and red. He does the Hulkamania tour for a few months there. He wins the world title. He beats Triple H, who just won the title at WrestleMania, and they made a shitload of money on Hogan merch. So it was like Vince knew like I got to go with the hot hand. I got to give Hogan the belt again.
Yeah. Bro, didn't it seem weird to you? Like, I did not understand this. Did it not seem weird to you, bro? Was after Hogan died, they did the promo with all those t-shirts, and then they said all of the money was going to Hogan's family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they made it sound like Hulk's family needed the money. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that was so weird to
Yeah.
me. I mean, maybe if I don't know if the money goes to a charity or something, but they made it seem like I don't think Hulk Hogan's family was hard up for money after his passing. That was really weird to me, man.
That was odd. And the thing is, too, I don't know if people realize this or not, but his family gets a percentage of it anyway because he signed that deal and they owe him money for his merch.
And
So,
I'm
yeah.
I could bro, I could understand what they wanted to do, and good for them. They didn't want to look like they were taking advantage of his death.
Right.
I
Yes.
understand
Yes.
that fully. But what they should have did was started a scholarship fund or something. You know what I'm saying? But to make it sound like, oh, Nick and Brooke need the money, like it was like, bro, I think Hulk's family is going to be okay for many years to come.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, people are like, oh, they're profiting off his death. No, people legit. And people were even messaging me about, can I sell them my Hogan autographs?
Oh yeah,
Where
no,
can I
bro.
get Hogan merch?
Yeah,
People
no,
were like
they
inundated. They
want
want the
that
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. They want it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I had no problem with it whatsoever, and I knew what they were trying to do, but it was just kind of weird the way they handled it.
I literally, when I read that on the screen, I was cracking up. I was like, money goes to his family. I was like, well, of course they're getting a percentage, but they're like trying to say the whole thing as if it's like a
Yeah,
GoFundMe or something. Like,
yeah,
weird.
exactly. I'm like, okay, whatever, you know.
Yeah, that did come off odd, but obviously he's always been a cash cow for them, always a merchandise guy. In 2002, he literally kind of went there and was doing like a job tour. Like Vince is like, "Oh, you're going to come in and put over my guys," because Taker beats him for the title. He loses obviously to The Rock. He ends up losing on a random like SmackDown at Triple H. He loses at pay-per-view to Kurt Angle. Him and Edge win the tag titles, but then they lose him to the Un-Americans. He loses to Lesnar, and Lesnar kind of ends Hulkamania, if you will. He like destroys him and breaks his ribs and all this other stuff, makes Hogan pass out. So it's like he was really kind of using Hogan, and Hogan, to his credit, he dropped all those guys. He put over the young guys, but he along the way, like he beat the Flair and Jericho and a few guys, and like Landstorm, and you know what I mean. Like he did get some wins along the way, but he was jobbing a lot at that period. You know what I mean? Like he really put guys over.
I missed all that stuff, John. I mean, I was working for TNA at the time, and I was knee deep, so I didn't get to see any of that.
At this point, too, I mean,
Well,
I
actually, I wasn't working. Actually, I
no,
didn't go
you
to
weren't.
TNA
Yeah.
until 2002, so I was just not watching anything at that time.
So towards the end of the summer of '02 is kind of like the Lesnar thing, and he's gone for a while, but he is doing his book tour. So he's got a big book tour going on at that point. And it's interesting. Like I met him during the book tour. He thought he was coming back because they had MSG and Brock Lesnar was defending the title against Big Show. He thought maybe like he would be in that match instead. So it is interesting kind of the way they kind of use him. Then they bring him back at WrestleMania 19 to feud with Vince. And apparently it was a bit of a shoot. Who made who, Vince or Hogan? And Vince was like really trying to kind of say like, I made him. What was this feud? They bring
What
back
year?
Piper
What year
for
was that? What year was that?
2003.
Okay, yeah, that I think that was on the table when I was meeting with Vince. I think that was next when Vince and I had that meeting in 2002.
So it always seems like when Vince needs Hogan or needs a pop or needs something, like he'd bring in Hogan. Like he always kind of was very business savvy with Hogan, but it did feel like maybe a little professional jealousy or like I made this guy, he didn't make me kind of thing. It always seemed like that was an underlying thing with those two, and they actually brought it to fruition with their feud at WrestleMania 19, which was, by the way, an awesome match. Like so shockingly, Piper interferes. Like the camera work is nuts. Vince is bleeding, right, and you only see the ring apron, and Vince is down. All like it's like a serial killer or like a cool villain. He comes up and all you see is blood, 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 and then you see Vince's face. He's like all maniacal and the camera work was great. But the
Yeah.
awesome match, WrestleMania
I
19,
didn't see, I
shockingly
didn't, I
Hogan and
didn't
Vince.
see that either, man. I didn't see that either. Wow.
Then he leaves for a while. He did Mr. America, which is like the Dusty Rhodes Midnight Rider thing. He's wearing the mask. You don't know who it is. Obviously, you know who it is. Type gimmick. They do that for a little bit. He
Isn't that
leaves.
do you think that's a rib on Hogan?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I thought it was. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But they did that for a little bit. It just felt like they were like using him, like, hey, we can still get, get that little bit of that Hogan dust. They bring him back for the Hall of Fame in 2005. He has a huge pop when I was there at MSG. He made a surprise return. He beat up Muhammad Hassan and Davari. I actually asked Hassan 2 months ago, and he's like, "Man, that was so awesome." He goes, "I had goosebumps, and I'm the villain. I'm the Iron Sheik that he's
Oh
beating
yeah,
up, and I got
of
goosebumps."
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big deal for him. Yeah.
SummerSlam '05 with Shawn Michaels. Obviously, there's a little bit of contention with
Is
Michaels
that the
overselling.
clown? Is that the clown music match?
Yes, where he's overselling and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's
Yeah.
so funny? I was just watching an interview with Cody Rhodes. He's convinced that that was a work by Hogan and Michaels to make people think that the match was like a shoot, like Michaels was doing his own thing. I don't know about that. It seemed like Michaels really was doing his own thing,
Yeah,
going to business for
that's
himself.
that's way too many levels. I don't believe
Yes.
that for a
Yeah.
second.
He fights Orton. That's obviously beats Michaels. He beats Orton at SummerSlam. The funny thing is, people are like, oh, he should be putting people over. I drove to SummerSlam in DC when he beat Michaels. I didn't pay there to see Hogan lose. Hogan did the losing shit already, like in job to all your guys. I don't want to see him lose anymore. So him beating Orton and Michaels back to back, I had no issues with whatsoever. Just because it's like, come on, I paid to see this guy. It's like a nostalgia thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
paid
yeah.
to see. So obviously Vince is then done with Hogan, and then enter, the Hulkamania tour, the micro championship, the celebrity. Like he's doing all his outside ventures and stuff, and then obviously TNA, Spike TV, and you're working with him again. Was there issues there, like when? Because we already talked about the press conference and him coming in, but was there issues, and how did you guys work that out?
Yeah, no, bro. I only got bro. Let me tell you something. I used to get hot at Eric and Hulk. I'll tell you why I used to get hot at them, and I'll tell you the one time I really got hot at Hulk, and I didn't do anything. I walked away. Bro, I would get hot at them because John, we would have a production meeting at Universal Studios at like 11 o'clock in the morning. So we're done at like 12 o'clock. And bro, as soon as you're done, you go to catering, you throw down your food, and then you get to work. Okay. Well, bro, what would happen would be the production meeting would end at about 12. Hogan and Bischoff would leave the premises and not come back till about an hour before the show started. So we're all working like dogs the day of a show, getting everything set up. And then these two guys would prance in an hour before showtime. Really, really, really pissed me off. And the one thing that really set me off one time, bro, was there was a match scheduled between Sting and Kurt Angle. Okay? Bro, these guys were talking about the match by phone all week long. And they both put in a couple of calls to Hulk to get his feedback, and he never returned their call. So now it's the day of the match, and they pull me aside, and this is Sting and Kurt now. This ain't two freaking jabrones.
Yeah.
And they lay out the match that they have. Okay? And I'm like, that sounds good. But at that point, Dixie had all the main events like that. You had a run of laid out to Hulk. Okay, bro. 2 o'clock, no Hulk. 3 o'clock, no Hulk. 4 o'clock, no Hulk. 5 o'clock, no Hulk. An hour before the show starts, Hulk comes walking in. Okay. Meanwhile, Kurt and Sting are looking at me like, what the F, bro? Like, seriously, we've got a match tonight. We've been trying to get a hold of this guy all week. What's the deal? So now, bro, the four of us sit in the green room, and Kurt and Sting lay out this match that they've laid out all week. Hogan starts changing the match. Bro, this is Kurt and Sting. This ain't, Matt Morgan. So, bro, as Hogan's changing the match, and like I said, bro, they've tried to get a hold of this guy all week. Bro, these guys are looking at me like, what the fuck? Like, are you freaking kidding me, bro? Like, we've been trying to get a hold of you all freaking week. We've got this thing down. Now you're going to completely rework this an hour before. Bro, I got so aggravated. And John, here's why I got aggravated. To me, it was such a disrespect to Curtin Sting. It was such a disrespect to them. I was so upset and so pissed off, bro. I got up and I walked out of the ring. I mean, out of the room, because I really felt if I would have stayed there, I would have said something, and it would not have been good. So I just got up and I walked out of that room because I was like, bro, like I felt like those two guys were so disrespected by him at that point in time. And, bro, maybe at the end when the writing was on the walls, maybe he was calling it in to TNA. I wasn't there at the very, very end because I left. I couldn't take it anymore, bro. When you had Pritchard there and you had Bischoff there and you had Hulk there, it was the same old, and I was done with it. So I actually left while he was still there, but that was kind of the boiling point for me because, and again, like I said, bro, only because I just felt he disrespected those guys and it was wrong.
It's interesting. Like he did actually get them a couple ratings over 2 million. I mean, there was like pops for TNA.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
it didn't end the right way, but there was some pops for them.
Yeah, we got it up to over 2 million. That's what people seem to forget. People love to say I was a failure at TNA. Bro, we had 2 million people watching on Spike TV. I don't think it could have ever gotten any better than that. That was about the max.
Pretty good. I know there's some stuff with Hogan, the Abyss stuff, the Flair stuff, the Aces and Eights, the Immortal. So there's some stuff obviously hit or miss, but I mean, Hogan's pretty advanced in age at this point. You know what I mean? To be like the main focal point or be a wrestler or whatever, but his star power was still there, obviously.
Yeah, that Abyss thing was his, bro. He thought that was like the greatest thing. Then they wanted AJ to dye his hair blonde and become like it started getting like just a little nutsy there towards the end.
My only thing is like, do you know AJ Styles? Have you seen him wrestle for like the last 10 years? Like, the guy's awesome. Like, what are you doing here? What are we trying to do here?
It was weird. It was weird. Yeah.
Joseph Parks' brother, Chris Parks' brother.
The magic ring. The magic ring. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, Hogan throughout the TNA and stuff maybe never reaches the heights again, but he's still Hogan. He still has the name, still huge. Then obviously the Bubba the Love Sponge sex tape controversy, the racist comment controversy. There's a bunch of different Hogan Knows Best becomes huge, but then there's problems with Linda, and then him trying to help his kids out, and then Nick gets in trouble, and the DUI stuff. I mean, there's just obviously with anybody in anybody's personal life, it just gets out there and there's ups and there's downs. And it's a roller coaster. But man, there's just some controversy. People for some reason can't let go. AEW has a guy on the roster right now, won't say who, conspiracy to murder multiple people, and he's on the roster, and nobody has any problem with this dude. I don't either. He served his time in jail. That's fine. But nobody says anything with this guy. But Hogan can't get away with anything. They can't forgive him for anything. Nobody's perfect. But what do you think about all the controversy? Because some people just can't let some of the stuff go.
John, listen, I've said this a million times, man. Like, bro, we are all flawed individuals, man. We are all F ups, every single one of us, bro. And if you think you're not, then you must be God, because he's the only one that has not effed up. So like, I don't have a problem with any of this, but what I really think, bro, is, John, I swear to God, this is what really I think is sad as I get older and older and older and older. This is why I think this is what's sad to me. And I think we saw it at the end of the story here. John, I swear to God, I say this to this day. I am so thankful that in 1999, Vince told me to hire a nanny to watch my kids, because that was my wake-up call. That was my wake-up call that told me this job and this industry is not more important than your family. It is a means to earn a living. It is a job, and that's all it is. So like, after my 5-year run of WWE, before I got in any deeper, thank you, Vince McMahon, to the wake-up call, because after that, I handled it as just a job. Bro, I look at guys like Hogan. I look at guys like Flair. I look at a lot of people in the business today. And bro, wrestling is the be all end all. Bro, I don't know if you've ever read any of Lalani Kai's tweets online.
Sometimes, yeah.
Bro, she is still living in like 1972. And wrestling consumes these individuals. It just becomes their be all end all. And you look at the end of this story, and now you look at the situation that Brooke is painting.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't go to his daughter's wedding, never met his own grandchildren. It's like, bro, like this at the end of the day, John, honestly, it is a job. And Hulk was a businessman, and Hulk made a shitload of money. But when you look at now the relationship he had with, Brooke, and when you look at, you know now how troubled you could see Charlotte Flair is because Rick's her father. I mean, you could just see it. I just wish, as people get older, I just wish they would understand, bro, wrestling is a job. And there are a lot of people that sacrifice so much for wrestling, including their own families. And I bet you those people would tell you at the end of the day, wrestling was not as important as I thought it was, honestly. And that was my takeaway. Bro, I got 2 grandkids now, and I cannot fathom Hulk Hogan never meeting his I can't fathom that, bro. Like I cannot fathom that. And that to me is so sad. And John, I see that every day on social media. Wrestling is the freaking be all end all. Bro, it's a job. And Hulk and Flair, they were blessed to make a shitload of money, and they earned it, bro. And Hulk worked his ass off. But how much did he miss of the things that really, really, really mattered? To me, that's the sad part, bro.